200 episodes. That is a lot of knowledge shared and a lot of impact made. Welcome to a special edition of Next in Nonprofits, where we're celebrating 200 episodes by reflecting on the work we do and why we continue to host conversations that help nonprofit leaders build what's next. Today, we'll hear from podcast creator and host Steve Boland and some additional Next to Nonprofits team members as well. So in case y'all didn't know, Next to Nonprofits isn't only a podcast, but we're a small consulting firm based right here in Minnesota. Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to dive in. So if we could just start and go around the room and introduce ourselves, that'd be great.
Great. I'm Kathleen Conroy. I'm the manager for Next to Nonprofits. I use she, her pronouns. I want to just mention my favorite sector, working in the nonprofits. I've really gained a lot of affinity through working in theater, actually. And so the art sector is really big and important to me.
Hi, I'm Shally McClear. She, her pronouns. I'm a consultant at Next in Nonprofits. Like Kathleen, my heart's in the arts, but also any nonprofit that has a mission that hits my heart is my favorite place to be.
My name is Steve Boland, and I am the director at Next to Nonprofits. And I think that the sector or cause that impacts me most is the one that I last heard about, because I just love the enthusiasm of the people that we get to work with, and it's just infectious. So it's hard to just pick one.
And my name is KD Bauer. I use they, them pronouns. And my favorite sector is arts and culture. I'm copying y'all. But I absolutely love specifically culturally specific arts and culture organizations. Just really great. And theater, of course. That's my heart. So, well, great to introduce some new voices to the podcast. Absolutely wonderful. So I was wondering, Steve, could you just give us a little bit of history of this podcast? Like, did you just wake up one day and say, I'm going to do a podcast, I'm going to do 200 episodes? Like, what's the story there?
I've been working in the nonprofit sector for many, many years, and decided to branch out to try and offer some services specifically to nonprofit organizations on a consulting basis. But when I was deciding to do that, I was a big fan of early podcast listening. I was learning a lot from different podcast hosts, and I thought this audio mechanism of listening to people tell their stories was really powerful and a great thing to do. And I didn't think that we were really getting the nonprofit community stories out the way that I hoped we would. So when it came time to think about what am I going to call this business, I'm like, I always thought that the podcast was going to be part of it. And we really picked Next in Nonprofits because it's really what the podcast wanted to be about, helping nonprofit organizations think about what's the next thing that we need to be considering. How do we do what we're doing just a little better than we did it yesterday? What can we learn from each other? And decided to teach myself what I needed to learn to be able to do this, bought some microphones, learned how to use Audacity, and here we are 200 episodes later.
Yeah. And I wonder if you can expand a little bit on how you started the company and why you started the company.
Sure.
And what was the inciting inspiration behind that, and kind of take us through to where we are today.
Yeah, I was on staff roles at nonprofits. I'd been an executive director at some small organizations. I'd been a program lead at a larger group. I'd had different roles within nonprofit pieces, but I ended up getting a master's in nonprofit management from Hamline University in 2009. I started that and finished in 2011. And really hadn't had that framework of a graduate program to put all of the stuff that I had learned together into a more cohesive package, and thought, there's so much more here than I've been able to do in any of the roles that I've had before. And I really want to find a space where I can stretch these muscles and think through new ways of doing things. And unfortunately, didn't find like a single staff thing that really allowed me to figure out all those options. So decided that it would be better to try my hand at consulting and bringing those ideas to a range of nonprofit organizations, different folks, to be able to try what's right for them at the time that we're having the conversation. And did that for some years on my own. And I was excited to meet new organizations and learn new missions. But after a while, after doing this for a few years on my own, I was starting to get referrals from some of the people that we'd been helping with saying, this was great. We really like what we've learned working with you. This other organization would like your help too. I'm like, great, that's wonderful. And now there's not enough time that I can do this. And I had to decide either to learn how to say no to people that I really cared about or to ask for more help in doing it. And that's when we really started reaching out and adding staff capacity, bringing more people to the table to be able to help bring those things out. So now we are 7 as of this
We are
recording.
7. Yeah.
Which is super cool to have gone from just a solo practice to now a team that learns from each other too, which has been so great for me. Instead of just being one person trying to take information in, now I can come back and talk to a whole group of people about what they're learning and they're seeing, and it's so much better than doing it on your own.
It really is. I love working on a team of consultants rather than being an independent consultant. It's just a whole different experience. Yeah, so there's 7 of us now. And if you want to read more about or learn more about the rest of the Next Nonprofits team or more about anyone on this podcast, you can go to www.nextinnonprofits.com/about. So now I want to open it up to the overall team here. So, okay, so let's talk about your personal kind of or professional career journey. What initially sparked your passion for development and communications work?
Okay, so I think for me it was that I've spent now I'm getting close to 30 years working in nonprofits, and I've had a range of roles over that time. I've worked in administration, in program and project management, interim executive director. I've done all the things. I've worn all the hats. But what I know is that nobody can wear any of the hats unless somebody is there raising the funds to pay the salaries, to pay the bills, to provide the services, to be able to provide the bits, the basic, the foundation upon which all of the other work is done. Because without the dollars, there is nowhere to go. There is no ED or program or project. There's nothing happens. So discovering that I have a knack for being able to organize that information is what powers me to want to provide that service to other nonprofits that are doing great work.
Yeah, for me it was it's definitely the joy and the passion that I feel from being excited about different organization missions. I kind of came into this having worked in an arts and particularly nonprofit arts sector background and doing a lot of administrative roles there, a lot of management roles there, and then being able to now branch out into social services and really dive into what excites them and the relationships that I get to build and how they're building their resources. Like Shelley said, it takes resources, but also building their communities through these relationships has been really a big growth for me and why I'm in development now. Because for me, it's about the people and it's about the relationships and it's about the community that we're able to build and able to provide those resources to. So that has been a big part of it for me is that passion for the community.
Yeah, I would echo all those sentiments. I think, when you're thinking about like shared resources, how great is it that we can help organizations that seemingly feel like they're on an island at times, or they're on a boat, they're trying to, row in different directions. And we're like, oh, here's a free resource you can use that will really streamline efficiency for your organization. And I think there's something that's very exciting about that work because we're helping people get back to serving their mission on a daily basis
Mhm.
and kind of cutting through the inefficiencies or some of the administrative tasks that just kind of bog down day-to-day
Mhm.
work. Right. Anything to add, Steve?
No, just listening to everybody else tell their stories about, how we got here. I think so many people come to fundraising from this back door of I was a program manager, I was an executive director, I was a whatever, and somebody needed to help raise the money. And
Mhm.
it's so cool to bring that to all the folks that we get to serve going, we think about this a lot more than you've been able to think about it so far and have so much to offer to a person who might otherwise feel kind of on their own. And I love that part.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thinking about what we actually do as consultants, what do we do? I think if we pull back the curtain a little bit, a term or a phrase that we use internally is we do all of the
The
things,
things.
all the things.
Mhm.
So, what does this actually mean?
So We actually focus on really four main areas. We focus on fundraising and communications, but we also focus on strategy and management. And then a big piece of that is coaching. We really are trying to equip the organizations that we're working for to be better at being able to deliver on their missions in strong, positive ways. And so we do it not just in a way of giving direction, but we're partnering really with them. And so we're doing the implementation alongside them. So this is what means when we say we do all the things. We help you think through that problem. We're addressing that need of how to communicate with this particular donor, or you know, I can't find this in my donor management system. How do I do this search? Like, we're doing all of those pieces with the organizations.
Yeah, and I just want to build on that idea a little bit. So, sometimes, working at a smaller or medium-sized nonprofit, it's hard to, another phrase we use, build a plane while we're flying it,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so, how do we kind of walk hand in hand, as you
Mhm.
suggested, to build a plan, but at the same time implement it? And why is that a benefit for the organizations we serve?
But too many of the folks that we talk to, I think, feel like they are already in the thick of it, and being able to say, "Well, now it's time for a plan, so we're going to have to stop doing everything for the next year, and then be able to do, whatever." The urgency with which they're trying to attack these missions doesn't really give them that space to just go, "Well, I'm only planning and making some progress towards it when there's some early steps that we know are pretty tried and true in the areas that we're supporting anyway. I think allows you to see that progress that they want to make, but also get to that place where they do have a better comprehensive vision. And it is exciting to be able to do both of those things at the same time, to say we're going to help you get to this planning part that is going to be more comprehensive, but these things we know you're going to need, so let's go with them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the coaching, so because we offer development communications coaching and additional strategy and management, those they all kind of overlap together, right?
Mhm.
So even if we're your grant writing team, for example, we're going to strategize on building relationships. And how does that open a door with your programming? And how do we take that and move on to a social media channel and do an individual donor campaign? So there's a lot more integration happening
Exactly.
with the kind of work that we do rather than just like hyper segmented, which I
Yeah.
think is beneficial overall to the organizations we serve. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's we're not just providing a checklist or a one and done. We are really hands on, and we're actively involved with what our clients are trying to do in a way that um, we're not only approaching it as we're just your grant writer and we're just focused on this. I mean, we are really thinking about the mission that they are trying to deliver on. And as I mentioned earlier, we're partnering with them. Where it's the relationship, and it's the relationship that we have with our nonprofit clients that we work with, that also is an opportunity for us to learn and for us to grow and for us to really discover what's next in nonprofits.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a flexibility there with opportunities that we can be in an organization, as Kathleen mentioned. We may have been engaged to do grant writing, but then we notice that there's something there that the client can do to engage and build their relationships out further that might result in sponsorships or donations or other opportunities for the organization to broaden its reach. So it's not only about the work that we're doing, it's about the other work that can be identified and advising on strategies to engage with those other opportunities.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to dive a little deeper here. I'm wondering if we can all think back to some clients we've worked with or just our careers. What has been a surprising or rewarding moment that you've experienced when helping a nonprofit, specifically trying to achieve its fundraising goals? Steve, I'm wondering if you can give an example, Alma Un, perhaps?
I, you know, when we started working with Alma Un, I think it might actually have been before Kathleen started. I think maybe just a little bit before you came on
Just a little
board.
bit before.
Yeah. So it was at that point, really just me going to a smaller community-based organization that had some history, been around for a while, but um, didn't have the resources that it really needed to get the job done. And part of looking through opportunities like this and seeing improvements is being able to take advantage of the moment in time. And we were working with them in Minneapolis after the murder of George Floyd, and the investment in black-led organizations, opportunities there, really had this moment where it's like, how are we going to help this client take advantage of the connections they have in community, the impact they have locally, and who's the people that come to the table? And they had a developing partnership with Islamic Relief USA, a national funder, but it really hadn't been strategically thought of as how are they going to take this moment to help them grow. And neither of those parties had a framework for that. And we had to help them envision this is the thing that's going to allow you to do a 3-year investment that's going to jumpstart the size of this organization to now tenfold what it was before that moment in time. So it is a much bigger impact, much more happening. But it really needed that moment of this national funder didn't have a framework for how this was going to happen. The partner that we were working with in Al Maun didn't have a framework for how it was going to be happening, and we had to help bridge that to a place of what if it looked like this, and then everybody could come in and go right like that, except we tweak this a little bit this way, and we move that a little bit that way, and then it was something everybody was at the table for. And seeing that that happen and become a reality when nobody had seen the path forward is so rewarding. It is so much fun to be a part of.
Thanks for sharing.
Uh, yeah, it's a kind of a big question about what are those surprising or rewarding moments, and I think sometimes those big moments are the tiny moments, and it's a collection of the reward that you get back when you're working with a client creatively and strategizing, and something pops into your head and you're like, how about, why don't we try this? Or knowing or being able to identify where there is a gap that the client can fill, that there is something else that they can grasp, an opportunity out there that they can take hold of, and the client coming back saying, we hadn't thought of that, we just hadn't thought about doing it that way. So it's not only that we provide that structure, but it's also we're providing an element of creativity, and the reward that I feel certainly is when a client turns around and says, I'm so excited about this. And it's that element of there is a path forward. Very often, nonprofits, as we know, have huge challenges in front of them, and it's overcoming those and being excited about what's next.
Yeah, I think for me it was a really big moment for me was working with the Minnesota Milk Bank for Babies on their capital campaign. So they've recently, like last year, just a year ago now, moved to a new facility, and the facility is 3 times the size that it was, and they had never done any real development work or had a development department or a development staff person really before we came on, and to come on and jump into a capital campaign and have like 9 to 12 months to complete this campaign was really a challenge, but it was really rewarding because we've established this beautiful relationship with a client, really helping improve their mission, and now participate with them in so many other ways to support their work and their development and their relationships with their donors.
Yeah. Thanks again for sharing. I want to share something. It's maybe not fundraising, it's communications, since that's typically the area that I work in. But I kind of agree that it's these long campaigns where we're helping them set strategy and moving towards a collective goal, and then just hitting that goal feels
Mm-hmm.
so great,
Mhm.
doesn't it? For the client, for
Right.
us, and for everyone. So I worked with Ananya Dance Theater last year, a small dance theater company out of St. Paul, Minnesota. And we established a primary objective for their annual world premiere that they do. We wanted to bring in a new audience, a brand new
Mhm.
audience who has never attended a Ananya Dance Theater previously. And so we put together a plan, did all the tactics, did everything we needed to do, send it out the press release, do interviews on NPR, all of that. And it was so great being there opening night, a huge stage and auditorium, and the a board member went up from Anani Dance Theater and just pulled the audience. How many here have never been to an ADT show, a Naughty Dance Theater show. And overwhelmingly, 70% or more people
Wow.
shot their arm up in the audience. And it's just like those moments that it's like, we did good.
Yeah.
We did the work, we saw it through, and we're here celebrating opening night, for this incredible world premiere that's going to go on tour for the next year. Right. So that's just a moment I had to share as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks,
that's
Katie.
cool.
That was great.
All right. So I would love to kind of have a follow-up question here. So what's some unexpected wisdom perhaps you may have gained from working with a diverse pool of local nonprofits? Yeah, wisdom. Let's talk about that.
Oh, I think we get wisdom in everything
Yeah.
that we're doing, because everything we're doing is addressing a challenge, and every challenge has a number of opportunities for outcomes. And they're not every challenge is going to have the outcome that you want, but you're going to learn something about getting there. Um, it's putting together the pieces of a new puzzle and finding out what the picture looks like when you get to the other end. There's always something that you're going to learn from the client, from your team, from the audience that the client serves. Their population and community. So we're always learning, and everything that we learn goes into that toolbox that enables us to help serve our other clients better.
Mhm.
So every new client is getting the benefit of all of the other clients that we've worked with and all of those other nonprofits, and that gathered knowledge, that big bucket and basket of tools that we come away with.
That's so great. I'm just like reminded of a time where someone wrote in our chat at work, like, anyone have a development plan? You know? And then Shelly's like, on the drive template, and just like the collective templates and tools that we can
Mhm.
collectively bring to the table is fantastic.
Yeah. I would also say, in terms of the clients that we work with, is also just learning about people in general and
Mhm.
like how they communicate. And the styles are so different. And culturally, the styles are different. And just how they communicate with each other. That's been a big learning curve for me in terms of like addressing, okay, this person likes email, this person likes in person, this person,
Mhm.
just beyond the tools, it's even the language that's used and
Mm.
how they describe themselves, these clients and
Yeah, and
organizations we
and
work with.
and learning from that not to make assumptions.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
just learn.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, and just be open to it. Yeah.
I think an important piece of wisdom, as it were, that I was given early on, before I was at Next to Nonprofits, actually, and maybe encouraged me to think about doing this consulting thing in general, was being on a program staff for a housing organization and being in a room full of people that are really trying to figure out how are we going to get this job done with what's available to
Right.
us. And somebody leading this conversation thing saying, well, there's not enough money to accomplish X. So I think what we can do over here, and then Alan Arthur from then I think still called Central Community Housing Trust, but is now Aeon Homes, felt the need to break in. He's like, well, hang on just one second before we move on. There's enough money. There is enough money to
Mhm.
do anything that we need to do. There is enough money. We collectively, as a society, are not allocating it for this right now. But it's not that there's not enough. It's just the decision right now is that we're not going to spend it here. Now, having said that, we have to be where we are today. So let's talk about what we are going to get done today. But we'll never give up on the idea that, oh no, there's enough money. We just haven't allocated it here yet. I'm like,
Mm.
wow, that really stopped me from believing like, oh right, there is enough to do what we need to do. We just have to talk to people about that.
Yeah, and something I think maybe we can discuss a little bit is the concept or the school of thought that is abundance versus a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. That's it. So, I mean, I like to practice just thinking in abundance and thinking in a kind of optimistic, the world is my oyster
Mhm.
type space. And so, I always think when you come from that space of, yes, there will be, and it is there, and we just need to have the access and create our community of access to that abundance versus feeling like, oh, well, we will never get there. We'll never be able to accomplish this, or um, there isn't enough. That mindset can actually cause a bit of a block for a lot of nonprofits. There's like that pessimism of not seeing the opportunity. I know Shelley used the language before of saying
Mhm.
challenge, and I was thinking in my head, opportunity,
Opportunity.
Shelley. So yeah, we have to
Yeah.
look at things as, yeah, it could be a challenge, but there's opportunities
Mhm.
that exist. And that's part of that abundance mindset of seeing it as an opportunity.
Yeah, my favorite activity to do with any client is do a quick SWOT analysis and turn those threats into
Mhm,
opportunities.
mhm.
Um, a SWOT analysis being strength, weakness, opportunity, threat.
Yep.
Right. Any other follow up thoughts on just wisdom bits that you've learned over your career?
Listen.
Mm.
Listen, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that goes in all directions. I think nonprofits need to listen to their communities, which they're doing, which is why they are nonprofits. They're responding to a community need, and the nonprofit and our relationship with the nonprofit's relationship with us. That it's always an open listening circle. That listening is how we learn. So
Mhm.
keep listening.
Yeah, thank you, Shelley.
Perfect. So, okay, now we're going to move on to the consulting piece, which is advice giving. So we're just going to narrow it down because we all have plenty of advice,
Mhm.
hundreds of tidbits. But if you could give one crucial piece of advice to a nonprofit who is really taking a first or new step into fundraising, what would that be? Where do they start?
Uh, okay, I'm going to jump in here. I
Yeah.
think the crucial starting point is working out where you are now, working out where you want to be, then finding out who you need to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. And
Mm,
sometimes sometimes that'll be a grant writer or a strategist, a planner. It may be the community that you're already in, and it may be the team that you're working with. And it's most likely to be a combination of all of those things. But you need to take stock of where you're starting from in order to work out what it is that you need to do to get to where you're going.
Mhm.
And then the next step is plan, plan, plan.
Hmm.
Insert that big musical number right here that I would really like. Put on my tap
Planning.
shoes, plan it. Yeah, putting a plan in place once you've identified those things,
Hmm.
Shelley, and then creating a plan with a goal, with objectives, with
Yeah.
steps. I think that's a big piece of it is just coming up with how to get there.
Yep.
Exactly. And having the plan have enough like pliability
Yeah.
to be able to pivot. So, one thing that I love to do is have your objectives and your strategies or your goals, but then under that, have specific tactics and say, hey, is that really meeting this objective? This very clear objective? It's not. Maybe we can try a different tactic. So, still having a plan that are very smart, you know?
Right.
Hmm.
What does SMART stand for? Remind me.
Specific, measurable,
Measurable,
achievable, relatable,
timely.
Timely.
timely. Yeah,
Timely.
time
Time
defined.
bound, right?
Time bound.
Time
Thank
bound.
you.
Yes, yes. So having smart goal and I think from there just being able to be flexible because environmental factors change or
Mhm.
different priorities might come up for the organization, but still aiming towards the right North Star, right?
I mean, I think if you want to give some advice, but kind of go back to that, what have we lessons learned thing, that uh, somewhere along the line, somebody gave me the very ancient proverb of the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago.
Mm,
The
Mhm.
second best time is
Is
now.
now.
And too
yep.
many times
Right.
when I go talk to clients, they're like, well, we don't have, individual donor database set up. We don't have a communication strategy for this thing. We don't, and it really kind of takes the energy out of them. Like, we should have done that before now. I'm like, Sure, would have been great. Would have been great if 20 years ago somebody had set all this up and you've got 20 years worth of recurring donors. Would have been lovely. Let's start now so that 20 years from now, somebody's looking back and going, I'm really glad that this organization did those
Right.
things that set us up. But it is a piece of advice we have to kind of keep coming back to with clients that it is related, Shelley, to what you're saying, but kind of where are you now? You got to assess where you are now, but don't let that paralyze you that you should have been doing something else. And it's okay to recognize now is a great time to start.
Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate that opportunity that you have
Yeah.
that today gives you for tomorrow.
Yeah, and so that actually ties into the piece of advice that I'd like to give to everyone. It only takes, 5 to 10 seconds of bravery to make an ask, to send the email, to make a phone call, it only takes a small amount of physical time
Mhm.
to be brave enough to do something that is mission aligned and on track towards your goals as an organization. So just building off of Steve's idea a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And that's being efficient with your human resources, and also,
Right.
the other comeback that the nonprofits face the mountain of, well, how are we going to get from here to here? We don't have the resources at the outset. We need to be working towards that, but I'm stand by. There is nothing that a great spreadsheet can't solve. And everyone has access to a spreadsheet. So, there's an awful lot you can do with 5 minutes and a spreadsheet.
Mhm.
Yes, great advice.
Well, and then I always like to go back to kind of my past when I ran the puppet theater in Brookline, Massachusetts. And one of the things that we would use is a phrase that I would use to calm down everybody and to put things into perspective is it's just a puppet show. So we were doing puppet shows for audiences of 100, and preschoolers. And we would get all worked up about, well, you know, we didn't hit we didn't do this or this didn't happen or that didn't happen. We got all wrapped up into the business of operating this nonprofit and losing focus on
Mhm.
what is it we are actually doing? What is the mission delivery here? And are we being effective in that and getting to the clients? And then once the curtain went down and the puppets came out to take their bow, the kids rushed the stage, It was like they were satisfied. They were happy. They received what we were putting out there for our mission. So, but I use that phrase, just, it's just a puppet show, just to put things into perspective.
Yes, I love that so
Thank you.
much. It's just a puppet show. Love it. Okay. So I did want to reflect a little bit on the podcast history a little bit more itself. Does anyone have a favorite episode from the 199 you've previously recorded?
It was so much fun to think about, being able to come do this 200th anniversary or 200th episode together and to share all of this. But it is a little hard to think back on the idea of all of the amazing people that have chosen to share their wisdom with a large group of people on audio. And there's so many of them. And it is that hard thing of like, which is your favorite child out of all of these. But there are certainly moments that are inspiring and super cool. As I was reflecting about this earlier, thought about Sheetal Puri, who's a development professional who works for the Wikimedia Foundation, which runs Wikipedia and other related projects. And I saw what they had been doing with some of their recurring donor support and how they're messaging people. And I thought, this is really great. I really would like to be able to talk to somebody, but that's, Wikipedia, that's a big, big thing. They're not going to spend the time to talk to, us and the audience that listens to this podcast. And then I asked anyway, and I got an initial, we're not sure about this thing and asked a different way. And then got to somebody who's like, yeah, I'll tell you what we know about this and why we chose to do it that way and share that with a whole bunch of people. I'm like, you're Wikipedia. You're going to come on our little podcast and talk. This is great.
5 seconds of bravery.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. I'm
Right?
telling you.
So, I mean, the content of that conversation is really important, but it's also emblematic of sometimes people will just give you time to share what they know. And that's the whole point of this podcast is we want people to be able to take a little bit of time and share what they know with people that could really benefit from it. And sometimes that's a small independent little nonprofit, and sometimes it's the Wikimedia Foundation and everybody in between. and it's so exciting that got to be one of the things we got to share.
So cool.
Yeah, I know for me, it's Lori Jacob with her episode, which was episode 90, and it was about engaging your board in development. And that episode, other than just thinking that Lori is a tremendous resource and such a, we're so lucky to have a relationship with her. But that particular episode is really about how do you motivate your board? How do you get them engaged? How do you um, get them to buy into fundraising and communications? And so that episode in particular is one that really stood out for me.
Yeah, I think that's a question that so many nonprofits want to maybe learn more about
Yeah.
because it's just, board relations, how to engage boards. They're so dynamic, they're so different. People join a board for so many different reasons. I think that would be a really great one for people to look up. So episode 90, check it out after this one. Super great. We also have this really cool feature on our website where you can search keywords across all the podcasts that we've done and pull up podcasts that are interesting for you on a topic that you're passionate about. So you can write in the navigation bar, there's like a little search you can do right in there, or you can go to nextonnonprofits.com/podcast. And on the sidebar, you can browse not only through all of our podcasts, but all of our articles that we've written
Right.
and other content for keywords. So you can type social media management and see what tools we might recommend, or any other keywords that are on the side, or target areas that you're working in, such as stewardship. What does that pull up? So many different options. So definitely use that tool. Find a podcast that you're interested in. And give us ideas for the podcast in the future too, because what does the future look like? And what are the next two? Are we going to do another 200 episodes? So, I think, we would love to hear from you just in general. And so you can email us at podcast@nextonnonprofits.com. So asking everyone in this room and our listeners at home, or if you're jogging right now to listening to Next to Nonprofits, so what topics do you think we should cover going forward that will help best serve the nonprofit community?
I know an area for me that I'm really interested in is community-centric fundraising.
Yeah.
And it's the idea that anybody within your community who is related to, tied to, connected to your organization has the ability to participate in giving, whether any level of giving. And I'm talking financial giving. And it's about how to reach them and allow them and provide space and not making assumptions about anything about them and giving them opportunities to give and really creating those moments. And so I'm really interested in community-centric fundraising and really hope we'll have a podcast on that soon.
Yeah, there's a phrase, I think, Steve, you've used this a lot for community centric fundraising. It's talking about not making basically assumptions for people and give at a level that is meaningful for you, right? $5 could be meaningful for a donor. $10,000 can be meaningful for a donor.
Right.
So meeting people where they're at and inciting that kind of approach.
Right.
Love it. So future podcasts, maybe like a back to basics podcast series could be kind of fun. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Remember that social media campaign we did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The back to basics, the ABCs.
Yeah, the ABCs of fundraising, the ABCs of communications. I think, a series like that could be really impactful for, I don't know, just an idea. We can think
No,
about
absolutely.
That.
There's people coming into this sector all the time that come in
Right.
with a passion and a belief and an interest, but not any experience with what all the basics are. And so, laying it out from the beginning, I think, could be really powerful for some folks to be able to do. I think it's a great idea.
Sweet. Okay. Got it down. And okay, so another thing is we called it Next to Nonprofits because everything changes for nonprofits,
Yeah.
or what's next? Do you want to go into that, Steve, a little bit?
Well, the whole idea of the the consulting practice itself and the podcast was that if it's a well-established idea, it is good to have some basic training things available about doing your end of year appeal. Everybody probably ought to be doing an end of year appeal, and that's great. But when we started doing this work, in 2013, the landscape of reaching individual donors was extremely different from what it is now. So there's going to be there's going to be a change that makes this different in some way, shape, or form. And we get to be the curious people that are like, who knows something about this next thing that just happened? What are we going to be doing that addresses how the world is changing differently? What new tools? I mean, I remember our very first podcast conversation about AI. That wasn't on the table for the beginning several years of this podcast. It wasn't a tool that people had to struggle with. And when it came time, and it was really something that was meaningful, where people were like, how do I use this? Should I use this? What's involved in it? It was great to be able to record really smart people thinking about a couple of different times in different podcasts, because it has been complicated, and share that. So what's after 200 is really exciting to go, well, what is next? We don't really know yet, but I'm excited that we get to be here to learn about it.
Yeah. And I think the coolest part about some of the work we do is we get to be those forward thinkers, those innovative thinkers, right? We have time and capacity to look ahead and to see trends in the wider landscape and to see what sticks, what doesn't. Maybe this tool is good this year, but next year it's going to be this tool, because they've taken a lot of community feedback, and, they've improved the tool to better serve organizations, or they have a lower transaction fee, or whatever it is. I think that's so cool that that's just a part of what we do. Is we go out there, we test the tools, we try everything.
Right.
We, learn from our environment on a wider scale, and then really filter in, and then can make collective recommendations from there, which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, which all ties back into our learning. We've the advantage of being a team, and we're a team then with our nonprofits that we're working with. So we are learning, and it's a continually, it's a continual learning circle. And from that, we're able to maybe not quite predict with a crystal ball what's exactly next, but we can have an idea of where things are trending and which direction things are moving in.
Right. And where support is needed most. Right. Exactly. Okay. So I have one final question for you all, and it's a trivia question. What is the song in our intro outro music for this podcast?
And who wants to talk about why it's that song? I want to talk about that, but does anybody know?
Does anyone know?
I don't actually, I know the artist, but I don't actually know the song title.
Okay, who's the artist?
The artist is Nine Inch Nails.
It is indeed 9 Inch Nails.
Who we are frequently mistaken for 9 Inch Nails, of course, when we're out and about.
I have had that from clients before when we've abbreviated the name NIN. And people will come back and do that. But honestly, when I was starting the idea of doing a podcast, I'm like, well, people usually have some kind of intro music. That's a thing that you get used to in the format, right? So I don't have $2 to rub together. What am I going to do about intro music? So I went to the Internet Archive and looked for music that was available for reuse, licensed for reuse without fee. And in this particular case, it was fine that it was licensed for reuse as long as it was not-for-profit reuse, right? We don't take ads on the podcast. There isn't any money being made on that piece, so it was okay. And I did some searching around to just try and find something. And we had already decided on Next in Nonprofits as the name of the podcast. And when 9 Inch Nails turned up as somebody who was freely sharing their music for non-commercial use, they're just like, this is part of who they are. Is like, we want this music to be able to be out there. As long as you're not making money off of it, you can use it for your own remix purpose. And I'm like, oh, it has got to be 9 Inch Nails. That's just all there is to it.
Perfect. So what song is it? I don't know either. Do you recall?
Is there a title?
Is there?
There is a title that is linked from our website. And honest to Pete, I don't remember the name of it right now either, but we linked into the archive.org section where all of this is available with that song title. So we'll definitely send everybody a link to go to the podcast main feed, nextdnonprofits.com/podcast, and follow that link and listen to all the other cool 9 Inch Nails songs, but that one will be in there.
Yeah. Thank you, Trent Reznor.
Right.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, 9 Inch Nails. We love it. All right. Well, that is a wrap on our 200th episode. So, whether you have been listening from episode 1 or just discovered this podcast today, thanks so much. Thanks for listening, for sharing, for all the incredible work that you do at your nonprofit to make our world a better place and Minnesota a better place. Keep innovating, keep collaborating, and keep striving to build what's next for your nonprofit. You can find us at www.nextinnonprofits.com or right here in your preferred podcast app for the next episode, published every other Tuesday. We'll be back soon with more insights, more inspiration, more conversations to help you navigate the ever-evolving landscape of the nonprofit world. And if you've got an idea, remember, we want to hear from you. Reach out, podcast at nextinnonprofits.com, and just say hi. Just say hi to us. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.